Welcome to another Band of Gamers podcast. So tonight, we're coming to you a little bit different, a little bit later, a little bit on an off day, but we're going to try something different. We're mixing it up, keeping the formula a little bit fresh, or at least remembering after 85 and a half episodes, it's okay to mix things up every once in a while. So tonight, it is myself, DBQhams and Zeuxidamas. You still there, Zeus? And
I
you,
am. I am.
all
What's up?
right.
I'm on the social media controls, but yes, I am still here.
Excellent. Good. So we are coming to you tonight to talk about some news of the week. So on Monday, we had our topic of the week and had a nice, good discussion about some classic 16-bit games. Tonight, we're going to wrap up some key moments in this week's news, keep it nice and short and simple, and be out and in your ear holes and out by the time that a half hour rolls around. So we'll be back joining you again on Monday with our normal discussion, but we're going to keep, we've heard from people, and it's good to have a little more Band of Gamers in your life. It's never a bad thing. So tonight, it is Thursday evening as of this recording, and yesterday we had the Call of Duty World War II WWII. However, they're going to make the box art with the intense stare that they gave us the official reveal yesterday. And so I'm going to start off with that in terms of our news. We've got a couple other news stories, but that seems to be it's hitting the news cycle quite a bit. And it's official, right? We had the leaks from last week that we were going back to World War II. It's been kind of leaked and discussed. We even had a poster last week, but it is official now. And so they've continued to their press statements and their pre-order statements talk about boots on the ground. And I'm going to try to not say that statement anymore in the news. But the idea basically here is that they're back in World War II. They are going to try to mix it up a little bit and make it a little harsher. You're not a Superman. You're going to be an everyman. Your character's name is Red from Texas, right? That sounds all American. But you're going to be mixing it in and playing some other characters. You're going to have the developers talked about, this is Sledgehammer Games, the developers of Advanced Warfare. And before then, Sledgehammer Games actually has some people from Visceral of Dead Space that helped found the studio. And so they're talking about some of the different character dynamics, and they described that they're going to kind of lean into the racism and the bigotry of the time, so that, they described one of the characters in your platoon is going to be a Jewish American, and they're going to have to deal with some of, obviously, the realities and horrors that were faced during World War II in the European theater. They also are going to have some interactions with an African American platoon, and some of the people in your platoon are going to have some negative reactions to that, given the time period of the 1940s. Also, they talked about women's roles and how they're going to play off that. So they threw a lot of pieces out there in terms of trying to catch a lot of dynamics in terms of characters. But they also described a very slick and well-polished trailer, but giving some kind of horrors. One of the scenes that they have been describing is one of the battles where the Germans bombed Allied, they were in a forest, the Germans bombed the forest, and the splinters rained down on the Allied troops. It was one of the longest battles for an American military, and the name of it's escaping me. But so they're trying to, they're not quite doing a Battlefield 1 of jumping from character to character, but they are trying to root it in historical settings. And so even some of the multiplayer maps, they've talked about some co-op campaign missions. In the co-op campaign, they're going to throw you into some kind of big battles of key moments within the European theater. And again, of course, they did announce that there is obviously going to be a key multiplayer feature. It's going to be demoed. There's going to be playable pieces at E3 coming up in June. They described you have a headquarters, which some outlets are talking about it kind of division-like, not division-like, but Destiny-like in terms of a central social space like the Destiny Tower. And then obviously there is the now prerequisite zombies mode, which again, Nazi zombies come back after being in and out of a number of different Call of Duty games. So I think I've captured all the 16 bullet points that Activision wants us to talk about. But I will say, as somebody whose Call of Duty, experience is relatively slim, but really enjoyed the historical Call of Duties and Call of Duty the original and 2. I'm interested in this more so than I've been for any of the Black Ops and some of the futuristic ones. Zeus, any thoughts about any surprises here? I mean, it's kind of it was a pretty canned event. There wasn't a whole lot that they let slip. Anything that stuck out to you as noteworthy other than the press release that I almost just read off?
Yeah, no, not anything. Not anything particularly earth-shattering. I kind of feel like, how the heck am I trying to say this? It is 10 o'clock at night here, people, just so everybody understands where DB and I are coming from. But it's kind of like Scorpio for me, right? Like, great. Like, I appreciate the early heads up, but I just kind of need to see it and where it's going. I have a lot of confidence in this. Is this Sledgehammer doing it this year?
Yep, this is Sledgehammer. Yep.
Yeah, so I have a pretty good amount of confidence in really all these teams. I have to say, these 3 development teams are just kind of like they are the Cinderella story of the games industry, these days, and none of these teams gets enough credit, right? Like the Infinity Ward team that's there now kind of gets snubbed as the replacement Infinity Ward team, and Treyarch and Sledgehammer still kind of get snubbed as like the also rans. But they really do incredible work, and it's not really their fault that franchise is annualized. And to them, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Because each of their unique takes on it, to them, it's a 4-year cycle, right? Or 3-year cycle. So yeah, I think they're doing the best work that they can, and I am interested in seeing this because, like you said, I'm a huge I started playing Call of Duty on the PC. I have very distinct, specific memories of playing that original on the PC, and even on the Xbox 360, which I the iterations of that game, I think we may be talking about on our Monday episode. I have some of the best times in multiplayer playing those titles. And the last one, I think it was called Call of Duty 3 World at War, I think is what it was called. I've mentioned that this game feels like a spiritual successor to that. It feels like they're going for kind of the same approach. And the thing that stands out about that game to me, particularly in multiplayer, is that's when the game really started getting big. Call of Duty 2 was, I think, 8 players on a map. This was 16 or maybe 32.
Yeah, at least I remember 16. It might be higher. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I may not buy it, but I'm looking forward to its release just to see kind of what it does to shake up the industry.
Yeah, and I'm also I'm glad that they're kind of mixing it up. There obviously were a lot of outcries last year with the announcement of Infinite Warfare and all the YouTube downvotes of it. But really, that game came together. I thoroughly enjoyed that game as far as what it was in terms of a single player experience. The multiplayer was much slower than any of the Black Ops. But it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with multiplayer and how they make that, and what the audience does too. I think that will be the really interesting thing. Like, does it bring people back like you and me who have fond memories of the World War II generations of this game, or does it only cement the fact that those people that are hardcore into Black Ops 3 that never really left for Infinite Warfare are going to stay in there because it's a movement base, it's powers, and like you said, with 3 different development teams, there's no reason why Activision has to bring every year every developer into the same kind of generation of warfare, right? That they could keep that separate.
Right. They probably missed the boat, but it would have been really bold, in my opinion, if they would have taken one team and put them on like World War I, World War II, taken another team and put them on like the Korean War and Vietnam War, and then taken a third team and had them continue to do the Modern Warfare series.
Yeah, or even, I would be very interested to see what, the Vietnam and Korean War take would be, because we've really only had a couple actiony games, right? There's been a few PC games that have been more in that direction, but, other than the Battlefield Bad Company 2 expansion with Vietnam and bits and pieces of Black Ops, that you didn't necessarily have a lot there. So I think that still is fertile ground to cover. It also has potentially some interesting political avenues and stories to tell there. Even splitting up the teams to have somebody come back to do just modern and current warfare, right?
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing to get in that annualized cycle. This notion of we don't have to be in the same era for all three releases. So that would have been interesting. And yeah, with the Korean War and Vietnam War, for whatever reason, there's still two conflicts that game developers seem to shy away from to a very large extent, which is the more and more distance we get from those. It's interesting that that's still a creative choice to kind of skirt those two items. So you ready to move on to our next news story?
Yeah. So what do you have for us tonight?
So I have a bit of discussion on analysis of Microsoft earnings. So at the time this article was written, they had just released their written report of their earnings. So they had not done the press conference yet, or earnings call, I should say. I believe that earnings call went down today, just later in the day. And I have not seen any stories talking about what came out of that. But in the meantime, generally good news, and Microsoft financials have generally been good, if not quite a bit obfuscated. But the games division has done well. They are actually part of the more personal computing division, a label which I don't really understand. But I know at least phones are also in that division. So total decline was down 7% for that division, but games revenue was up by 4% to be just shy of $2 billion. The big story here is that Microsoft is attributing the growth and good health of the gaming section of that larger division to Xbox Live, their service-oriented component. So while they did say that they took a hit in hardware sales, that was kind of balanced out and actually covered by the growth of service accounts. So last quarter during the holiday season, they saw their highest monthly active users on Xbox Live. So that would have been during the months of the last reporting quarter. It was at a record high of 55 million monthly active users. So this quarter they were at 52 million, which is a 13% bump from the same quarter last year, but is obviously a decline in comparison to the holiday season. But they said that 3 million decline from 55 million last quarter to 52 million this quarter is not unusual to see, because you typically get a large number of signups as people get their new consoles and sign up for the first month of Xbox Live or a 3-month subscription, but then don't necessarily renew. So overall still doing very healthy. So like I said, software and services were up 7%, the same as the total division, as the total game section was up 7%, but they didn't give a specific dollar number. So one of the things they cited is, one of the strongest trends here is in the adoption of digital distribution. I'm in a good game lineup. And my personal assessment on this is largely due to cross-buy. So just that effect that you get from dropping Forza Horizon 3 and Gears of War 4 and having them be available to play on both PC and Xbox One. And the notion that when you buy it for Xbox One, you can still play on a PC by streaming. I think that's just a very powerful competitive argument for Microsoft to be making in the space, even though you can still do kind of sort of the same thing with the PlayStation. But I think it always feels better when it's a native and organic extension of the operating system. So yeah, so that's where we are. Positive news on game sales for last quarter coming from Microsoft.
Yeah, and I think that piece of the fact that the play anywhere, the buy once get it twice model that Microsoft has done with their first party games is a really interesting piece. The fact that their games division has gone up, right? That in theory you're cannibalizing their own sales. That what could have been a multiple sale on two different SKUs for a PC and an Xbox is only one, but it also may incline people like you and I to purchase some of those games that we might not have, because we know that we can play it on both systems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to characterize. I think those games being available as cross-buy for both platforms means PC gamers who would have typically ignored that, mainly because those games were available from the Microsoft Store, and there are some people who are very religious about not buying games from the Microsoft Store. I think unnecessarily and ridiculously so. I would say that a lot of those people are being influenced by very fiery words that are coming from other business owners and game developers in the industry, making claims that, at least as far as my experience goes, that just aren't true. But yeah, I think in the past people would not have purchased that game, but the fact that you buy it once and you can play it on PC and then continue that same campaign over on the Xbox and back and forth, and not even have to monkey around with connecting up, streaming your Xbox One to a PC. I think it's an incredibly powerful convenience that that makes it feel worthwhile to plunk that $60 down.
All right, so our next story. So this is one that this just ate through my Twitch live streams over the last 2 days here. So on Wednesday it was Call of Duty's reveal, and there was 104,000 people watching on Twitch during the reveal right initially. And Heroes of the Storm 2.0, the day before on Tuesday, did a launch event or relaunch event for Heroes of the Storm, which is Blizzard's kind of hero-based arena MOBA game. And there were over 61,000 people simultaneously watching it on Twitch, which is pretty good for a relaunch of a game.
So DB, explain this to me. How do you have a 2.0 for and Heroes of the Storm is free to play, right?
Yes. Yep.
So
free to play.
So for a free to play, continuously in development, we deploy everything that we build type of model. How do you? Is it just like a mythical line in the sand that they draw and they say, "Yea, verily, as of this month, we now call this 2.0"?
So I think in this case, not so much. I would say that Marvel Heroes 2015, Marvel Heroes 2016 is much more of a mythical line in the sand, or at least a way to get a new Metacritic score out of it. But in this case, they came out last month and said, here's the changes that are happening. They changed the whole kind of leveling structure. So before you could level up to level 40, and at level 30 you would be unlocked to play matches against other people. And at level 40, well, you kind of capped out. You could continue leveling up your heroes, but that was as far as you would go. And you'd buy skins or you'd buy characters. Again, these are characters from all of Blizzard's properties. And so the gameplay has pretty much stayed the same. Obviously, they've been doing tweaks, and there's a meta for each character that continues to change with each update. But here they've modified the entire leveling system and the kind of reward system as well. So they went much more, they learned some lessons from Hearthstone and from Overwatch. And so your leveling now is, I suddenly went from a level 32 to a level 92. Basically because it takes all of your character levels that you own and just adds them up together. So you continue to, as you play, there's always an incentive to level up. And every time you level up, just like in Overwatch, then you get a loot box. And in that loot box are voices or some of the skins that you used to have to buy with gold, or even characters. And so, that there's ways now, there's more incentive to play more. If you're not in the competitive scene, which I never really was, but I enjoyed the mechanics of it, right? As somebody who enjoyed Warcraft 3, I enjoyed playing this with other people or even playing it against the computer because it plays out a lot like some of that in terms of kind of the hero skill sets, but I never got into the competitive piece. But I always had fun experimenting with different characters. And so now I still have that chance. And, the nice thing about the 2.0 is it does change some of those mechanics. It gives you some of those things where if you have, if your loot box, you can break things down, right? It's the mobilization of it where you can break something down into shards and then use those shards to do other things with. But it's there's not a big paywall that you're kind of jumping into. And for anybody, so this is the neat thing about kind of the relaunch is, one, it's free to play, so it's easy for anybody to jump into. And if anybody who logs in between now, the middle of April, end of April, and the 20th of May, will get 20 free characters. And so, it kind of gives you an incentive to jump in. I have 29 characters unlocked already that I've been playing with over the past 2 years, but I haven't even done the extra 20. And so, yeah, I have maybe 8 to 10 of those in each bundle that I already own, but still, it's a great value. It's all you have to do is come in, even on their website, they give you a way to think about which bundle, what type of way do you play? Do you want to be somebody up front and doing a lot of damage? Do you want to be a healer? Do you want to be somebody in the back row kind of taking out players? And so there's different bundles for different play styles, or there's a flex bundle for people who just kind of want to dabble and explore. So I think they've done some nice things, in order to kind of figure out, to try to find their niche. This has been a struggle for Blizzard, who usually is a industry leader in terms of, whether it's MMOs or action RPGs or RTS games, to kind of come in and be the also-ran with League of Legends and Dota, to try to figure out this niche here. And so, yeah, I jumped in, played a little bit. It's fun. They've added some new maps. They continue to make it very user-friendly. And so I wanted to put it up there because it's a nice release and a fun and free kind of something for somebody, in this kind of slow game release time, that if you've ever enjoyed a strategy game or wanted to dabble in something like this, this is the one. More so, it's a friendly community, easier to get into as well.
Very cool.
So one of the other news stories that I was going to put up was about Marvel versus Capcom, but you've got another fighting game story to talk about.
And we're getting tight on time. I'm actually going to skip that one, which might be more interesting to talk about, because I just want to make sure this gets put into the show for people who don't have time to check on all the websites and keep up with all the news. So is that cool? Great. So just briefly want to briefly run down which Xbox Games with Gold games are free in May. So this was posted over on Games Radar. I'm only going to go down the ones that are exciting or interesting to me. So there's one that I'm going to skip. So number one, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. This is a game that kind of reflects the design and style of Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, which, if anyone remembers, was a game that was very popular as Games with Gold really got started, in its effort to kind of mimic what PlayStation Plus was doing. Because for those people who have been around Xbox Live for a very long time, if you remember, you used to not get free games with your subscription. It just entitled you to multiplayer gaming online, and every once in a while, a couple of free benefits. But it wasn't part of the main shtick. But now the sequel to Guardian of Light, essentially, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, will be free on Xbox Live Games with Gold from mid-May till the middle of June. And then on the Xbox 360 track, I refer to it as the track because in most cases, these games are also playable on Xbox One via backwards compatibility. So Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 will be available at the beginning of the month to the middle of the month. I think that's a nice get because The Force Unleashed maybe wasn't so polished of a game that a lot of people would have gone out and bought it. So now you can get it for free or for the mere price of the subscription that you already pay for. And I believe a few months ago, The Force Unleashed was also available free.
2 months ago.
Okay. And it's been free on both Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus. So hopefully you have it somewhere in your inventory. And you can now play the two-part not trilogy. I don't know what you call a two-part story. And then finally, Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. This, to me, is another nice get if to go along with the Lego game, Lego City Undercover, I think was what released last month or earlier this month.
Yeah, so last month or earlier this month you had Lego City Undercover, and last month there was the Lego Worlds game, which Prime has been playing quite a bit.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So that will be available again on the Xbox 360 track from mid-May through the end of the month. So that's a pretty robust amount of free gaming available right there for you Xbox gamers out there who have Xbox Live subscriptions. So back to you, DB. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think the nice thing about two of those games is that they're kind of couch co-op, right? With the Lara Croft game, you can play that with two players, both online and couch co-op. And then obviously the Lego games are synonymous for some good family-friendly co-op as well.
Right.
So in fairness and in balance, we will also give a quick nod to the PlayStation Plus games that are coming in May. There are a handful of games, but two of the ones that I want to actually, three of the ones that I'll mention. One is a Vita game that's also going to be cross-buy on PS4, which is Typewriter. It's a mobile game. It's been out on mobile devices for quite a while. It's kind of a fun little game. I think initially it was an Amazon Studio game that Kindle's had. And then thinking about things that were also on Xbox as well, we've got Tales from the Borderlands, the Telltale series. The first episode has been free for quite a while on any electronic device that you may own. But the entire 5-part series, it's if you like the kind of Borderlands humor, it's almost like a heist story. It's really, I've enjoyed it. I played it a couple years back. And then finally, the other one is Abzu. So Abzu is the Journey-like kind of game experience, which takes place under the sea. I picked it up this winter on a holiday sale, and it's a beautiful, peaceful kind of game, and it's a great summertime relaxing kind of game to get on your PlayStation Plus subscription as well. So Zeus, we're coming close to that 30-minute mark. Do you have any final news items we want to kick out before the end of the time?
I do not. Nope.
All right. So I guess we will wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us, for picking us up, for downloading us over the course of your weekend. We're going to get this up in our standard places, whether it's on YouTube, also get it up on SoundCloud. You can go to Gearworks, and that is a delicious spelling that I'm going to let Zeus remind us of one more time here. He's going to put it up on the screen, but we'll give him a little bit of moment to do that. So again, it's going to be able to be downloaded as you're heading out into your weekend, whether you're heading out of town, you need something to listen to for commutes, or maybe you're going to be like me and you've got some yard work to do. So put it in the podcast, tune out your family, and relax, enjoy, listen to some news. And remember that we'll be back here on Monday night again for our regular podcast, and we've got some good topics to cover there as well. So before I say goodnight to Zeus and to the rest of you, I'm going to turn it back over to Zeus in terms of that plug for Gearworks.
Yeah, so unfortunately I didn't have the site up and we were trying to wrap up, so I didn't want to swim over to the site. So I had my Facebook page up. As I was talking, I realized maybe it wasn't that difficult to pull the site up. So that's Gearworks, GEARWERKZ. That is where we will be posting the aggregated versions of the podcast. So you can find them on their individual YouTube channels and SoundCloud channels. On YouTube, it's the Band of Gamers channel. On SoundCloud, it's under my name, so look for Agasicles. And if you hit the website, you can see how that's spelled. You can actually see it on the screen here. And here on the website, Gearworks, GEARWERKZ, we have them aggregated so you can see both a brief write-up, the time index, as well as the YouTube video you can play right there on your screen, or you can play back the SoundCloud audio, or use that handy download link and download it. So trying to make it as convenient as we possibly can for you to listen wherever it's best and easiest for you to do so.
All right. And so thank you for that plug, Zeus. Thank you for all your work putting that together at Gearworks. And For myself, DBQhams and Zeuxidamas, and our friends who are not with us tonight with Greylock and Osiris Prime, we wish you a good night and a good weekend, and we look forward to talking to you soon.